Can I ask what church is he being baptized at? Okay, nice. Good deal. Okay, yeah. Well, good deal. Well, grab Bibles, Judges 19. So we have, counting this week, 3 chapters left. There's 21 chapters total. So we are winding down to the end of our study of Judges. I'll remind you again, this is the book that got me in the Bible. And when we get through this chapter, you're going to wonder, about me, probably. Because I remember first time I read this as a middle school boy. I just couldn't believe what it is I found. So as a middle school boy, I like Judges and Song of Solomon, basically. These are the only 2 books you can get me to read. And I do think there's a lot of riches here. I particularly think Judges is a book that is prescient for our day and time, where everyone does what is right in their own eyes, is a fitting description of 21st century America. So we'll take this in pieces. Let me grab this. Judges 19. Let's start with verses 1 to 15. It says, in those days, when there was no king in Israel, a certain Levite was sojourning in the remote parts of the hill country of Ephraim, who took to himself a concubine from Bethlehem in Judah. And his concubine was unfaithful to him, and she went away from him to her father's house at Bethlehem in Judah, and was there some 4 months. Then her husband arose, went after her to speak kindly to her and bring her back. He had with him his servant and a couple of donkeys, and she brought him into her father's house. When the girl's father saw him, he came with joy to meet him. His father-in-law, the girl's father, made him stay, and he remained with him 3 days. So they ate and drank and spent the night there. And on the 4th day they rose early in the morning, and he prepared to go. But the girl's father said to the son-in-law, strengthen your heart with a morsel of bread, and after that you may go. So the 2 of them sat and ate and drank together. And the girl's father said to the man, be pleased to spend the night, and let your heart be merry. And when the man rose up to go, his father-in-law pressed him till he spent the night there again. And on the 5th day he rose early in the morning to depart. The girl's father said, strengthen your heart and wait until the day declines. So they ate, both of them. And when the man and his concubine and his servant rose up to depart, his father-in-law, the girl's father, said to him, behold, now the day has waned towards evening. Please spend the night. Behold, the day draws to its close. Lodge here and let your heart be merry. And tomorrow you shall arise early in the morning for your journey and go home. But the man would not spend the night. He rose up, departed, and arrived opposite Jebus, that is, Jerusalem. He had with him a couple of saddled donkeys, and his concubine was with him. When they were near Jebus, the day was nearly over, and the servant said to his master, come now, let us turn aside to this city of the Jebusites, and spend the night in it. And his master said to him, we will not turn aside into the city of foreigners, who do not belong to the people of Israel, but we will pass on to Gibeah. And he said to this young man, come, and let us draw near to one of these places and spend the night at Gibeah or at Ramah. So they passed on and went their way, and the sun went down on them near Gibeah, which belongs to Benjamin. And they turned aside there to go in and spend the night at Gibeah. And he went in and sat down in the open square of the city, for no one took them into his house to spend the night. Okay, there is a new sort of meme is the word I use, but memes are usually for pictures. This is more of a video, a skit, if you will. It is of husbands carrying their wives over their shoulders, coming to their father-in-law's front porch, knocking on the door, and when the father-in-law answers it, he says, here, take her back, she's too expensive, and then taking off running. At which point, the father-in-law says, wait a minute, you can't do that, there's no take-backs. And it's ha-ha, funny, there's all kinds of versions of those. Watching this is like the opposite of that. That's supposed to be funny based off of old stereotypes, of course. You actually have the opposite going on here. Actually, what you have in this chapter is the breakdown of society, everything else. But these opening 15 verses, it really sets the stage, and it tells us how this Levite and his concubine got to Gibeah. So let's look at three things that fall apart. First of all is the sin of inhospitality. This first 15 verses, without a doubt, the main issue is hospitality. We have the extremes of hospitality from the father-in-law, where the Levite didn't drop his concubine off. She took off and went back to her daddy's house. And then the other extreme of inhospitality, whenever the Levite and his concubine find themselves in Gibeah. Well, let's start here, verse 1, that we have that opening again. In those days, there was no king in Israel. And of course, the line, everyone did what was right in their own eyes, is missing. And what we said previously is, I believe the line, everyone did what is right in their own eyes, is summarized in the narrative. So instead of saying, everyone did what is right in their own eyes, instead of just saying it, the narrator shows it. So what does it look like when everyone does what is right in their own eyes? And he highlights how a person who's supposed to represent the Mosaic law and teach the Mosaic law and hold the people of God to God's revelation. Here's an example of how he did what was right in his own eyes. And also, you may wonder that the writer assumes that he thinks if Israel had a king who would be responsible for the ethical and moral behavior of his people, things like this wouldn't happen. Now, if you've read 1 Samuel, 1 Kings, 1 Chronicles, you know that's not the case. But in theory, you can kind of see what it is. They're saying when everyone is just, when the whole society is anarchist, you just do whatever you want. This is the sort of stuff that happens. So once again, we meet another Levite. Remember that the last 5 chapters broken into 2 parts. We saw Micah and the Levite. What a mess that was. Here we meet another Levite, this one unnamed, because we didn't get the other one's name until I think the last verse or the penultimate verse. Here's an unnamed Levite, and once again we see he is paying no attention to God's word. You'll see he's described as sojourning. Again, this is similar to the previous Levite. He is disregarding where God has instructed him to live. And he has a concubine. Now, the Bible says Levites are to be married, of course. This guy isn't married, but he is engaged in improper sexual activity. He has a concubine. He has a woman in whom he uses for his own gratification with no desire to perpetuate the line of Levi. And so he has a concubine, not a wife. Now, we're going to come back to that. He's later called husband, but we'll look at that. And you'll notice he's from the city of Bethlehem. Well, in the previous story, Bethlehem played a prominent role. So just pause and think, okay, you've got Judges, and so you've got Bethlehem comes into play in the last 5 chapters with the 2 stories. The book of Ruth, Bethlehem plays a prominent role because that's where Ruth meets Boaz. Then you come into 1 Samuel, and you meet a Benjaminite. We'll come back to that. And who is he? He's replaced. King Saul's as a Benjaminite. He's replaced by King David, who is from Bethlehem. So you can kind of see that the way the story is going is preparing you. Keep looking in Bethlehem. It's a mess right now, but someone will come from Bethlehem. It's going to fix all this. And so no wonder Bethlehem, though a small town, plays such a prominent place. Well, the Levite and his concubine, verses 2 to 3, they have a fight of some sort. And your translation and my translation may disagree with each other. This comes down to understanding the Hebrew. I don't know which one's the best, so just believe whatever your translation says. Now, you'll see, so if you have NIV, ESV, King James, New King James, is it the Living Standard? Is that the new translation? I wish Carl was here because that's what we gave him last year. I think it's called Living Standard or Legacy. I don't know. It's something. The LSB and then the Christian or the Baptist Bible, if you will. They all say that she was unfaithful to him. Your translation, if you have the New Living Translation or the Net Bible, which is one of my favorite translations. No one uses it though. It says she was angry with him. If you have the New American Standard Bible, it's more generic, and it says, she found him repugnant. You know, that's a way of giving the answer without giving the answer. That's a good way of getting around this. This is a translation issue. Did they have a fight? Were they angry at each other? Or was she unfaithful to him? The word, depending on its etymology, can go either way. So most scholars think she's unfaithful. Others believe otherwise. So, for example, if you think she was unfaithful, the assumption would be that she flees because he would have the right to stone her. But then you have to ask, well, why did he go get her and just act like nothing happened? It's tough. The internal evidence and the external evidence is just tough to really know how to translate it. But nevertheless, the text doesn't tell us if she just flees or if he cast her out. They have separated for a time, and given that it's a 4-month separation, tells me he was in no hurry to reconcile. So it must have been pretty significant. And you'll notice verse 3, he is called her husband. Now, that's not a contradiction. That's the Bible making a point, a subtle point, that in their eyes, their relationship was that of concubine and man. But in God's eyes, it really was a husband-wife relationship. They were one flesh. But regardless, he travels to Bethlehem to retrieve his concubine. And you'll notice there he speaks kindly to her, is what mine says in verse 3. And we'll learn that this kindness is only for show, because what he does to her in the end is as far away from kindness as you can get. You got to think that if the father knew what was about to transpire, you'd imagine he wouldn't let her go with him. But nevertheless, he says the right things, he does the right things. And the father is joyous to receive him. After all, it's somewhat shameful for your daughter to leave the husband, to come back to daddy, all that sort of stuff. So he's excited. They can reconcile all of that. Well, verses 4 to 9 is, again,